Hi guys, and welcome back to Positively Diverse on my channel. It's great to have you back with me today. I have such a great interview that I want to share with you with a coach called Coach Aliya. She's an entrepreneur and she teaches women how to build confidence within themselves. I was very excited when Coach Aliya invited me onto her talk about how vitiligo has affected my confidence and how I was able to come out of my shell and accept the skin I'm in. Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. So I'm really excited for today's episode. We're joined by a really special guest today. So today we're joined by Joti Gata Aura. So Joti is a Spanish-speaking British Asian presenter, an online influencer with a skin condition called vitiligo, and is a self-published author of the book Strong in the Skin I'm In. Joti has a background in teaching, and before presenting, she taught Spanish in schools for 17 years. Her roles as both a teacher and a parent empowered her to stand out and stop hiding from her skin condition, and made the leap to run her own business called Positively Diverse. Positively Diverse is all about promoting body image and champions better representation in the media for those with visible differences and disabilities. Joti's mission is to help the next generation celebrate their individuality and accept their differences, to come together in their similarities, and to create a positively diverse and more inclusive society. Joti, welcome. I am so excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm great. Thanks, Aliyah. Really great. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
You're so welcome. So this is a bit of a different time for you, isn't it, right now? So we're in October right now, and usually at this time of year, correct me if I'm wrong, you would be, in the classroom, you'd be kind of like starting the new academic year, standing in front of your students. And this year is completely different, right? So just tell us a little bit about where you're at on your journey right now.
Yeah, absolutely, Aliyah. So I have been, as you mentioned, a teacher of 17 years in a school in London. I worked at two schools. I was head of Spanish in my last school. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely thrived in that environment. Loved supporting the young people that I was working with. There was a real buzz, and every day was a different day in the class in all the lessons I had, and that's what I loved. But obviously, the last few years changed for me quite dramatically. I started doing quite a lot of motivational assemblies in school, and this all started from when I did this short documentary for TV about being a misfit, being someone who doesn't fit into society's norms, and I gently kind of came out of my shell. And then I started doing these assemblies in school, and I kind of realized that, as I was empowering the young people I was working with, I was starting to gain a lot of confidence myself. So I never really thought that I would take the leap so soon, but on my social media, I was starting to support a lot of people, young people, teenagers, adults, women with body image issues. And I will talk a little bit later on about what Positively Diverse is all about. I mean, I have vitiligo, but I am supporting a wide range of people with a visual difference, effectively. And my business just evolved very organically, authentically, and it's just kind of moved at its own pace, which is really overwhelming, actually.
That's incredible to hear, and I'm so happy to hear, just how it sort of unfolded really naturally for you, like you said, really organically, and it just sounds like it's really aligned with you and your mission, and it's just like almost like one step led you to the next step and the next step, and you're like, wow, I'm making a difference here. How can I do more of that, essentially? And so let's bring it back to the basics. So I think, can you tell our listeners, as you mentioned, you're living with a skin condition called vitiligo. For our listeners who, haven't heard of this condition before, can you just tell us a little bit about it, what it is?
Of course. So many people will associate vitiligo with a condition that Michael Jackson had, and indeed he did have this condition. It's a condition that affects 1 to 3% of the world's population, and vitiligo doesn't discriminate against gender or ethnicity or age, so it can affect anyone at any age. From my experience, I've met many people who've had it from when they were born to very younger years of their life, to kind of receiving and getting it later on in their life when they've gone through a very stressful period. It really affects your melanin, and you start losing pigmentation in your skin, which makes you visually different. And actually what a lot of people forget is that the psychological effects are by far greater, because even though I'm perfectly capable of doing all the things that everybody can do, 2 hands, 2 legs, I can walk, talk, I can conduct my job and carry out myself in everyday life. What people fail to realize is, because your skin is changing with this condition, it impacts your overall self-esteem, which is the core of the issue, is self-esteem. And if we don't feel confident and comfortable in who we are, that's going to affect us on a day-to-day basis. That's going to affect our working relationship. That's going to affect our personal relationships. That's going to affect our day-to-day lives. And this is sort of really very much where I come in and have been doing the work that I've been doing around vitiligo.
Absolutely. I mean, how we see ourselves really is the foundation for everything else, really, isn't it? Like you said, our relationships, our work, what we believe about ourselves, how much we put ourselves out there, how we communicate. I read on one of your posts, you mentioned on there that you were diagnosed at 21 years old. You're now 43, but you only accepted this condition 5 years ago. So can you tell us a bit about that?
My life changed in 2016, and obviously I mentioned a little bit about the documentary that I did for TV, but that was just a small part of it. I was also pregnant at that time. I had my daughter, and I was going through lots of changes with myself physically, and there were so many things that I wanted to be able to do with her. I was starting a new life, bringing children into this world, and one of the things I wanted to do was to enjoy those moments of being with my children. Because later on I had my son as well, and I wanted to be able to get in a swimming pool. So for some of your listeners, that might be so normal to just get on a swimsuit and jump in a pool. For others, they might be thinking, but I was also, and I am still, very self-conscious about when I put a swimming costume on, how I look, how others perceive me. But when you've got another layer on top of that, vitiligo is going to make people turn around and stare. That just is such a vulnerable feeling that you have. You are vulnerable. And even though I had my children that kind of shielded me from that, I was still incredibly vulnerable. And I didn't want people to look at me like I was different. And I had only just kind of, in my head, I hadn't yet digested the thought that this is still changing. It's still happening to me. My body is still going through constant change. And I was very much in a place of weakness. I didn't have, any confidence in myself whatsoever. So when I realized that there were things that I could do with my children, I wanted to be involved. I wanted to be able to, start looking after myself, start going to the gym. And I was scared. How am I going to be in a gym and start working out if people look at me? How am I going to cover my face with makeup on a treadmill when I'm sweating? How am I going to cover it up? Because I had covered up for so many years. This is normal to me. My neighbors didn't know I had vitiligo. My colleagues at school didn't know I had vitiligo. My students I taught didn't know I had vitiligo. No one knew I had vitiligo. My cousins didn't know I had vitiligo. I don't think I've ever named it like this on a podcast, but when you think about those different groups of people, everybody around me was who I shielded it from, apart from my husband. And I think that, you eventually, during different ages of your life, during different circumstances in life, different situations that occur to you, I think you start evolving as well. So not only was it children, but it was also life circumstances that just evolved me as a person and pushed me along. And that's when gradually things started to change.
Yeah. Can I ask you, what was your like biggest fear when it came to telling people? What was holding you back the most from telling the people around you about, you know, this change in your life?
I come from a South Asian background. I have parents who are very, liberal, but also very traditional in their way of thinking. So when I was growing up, I was encouraged to study, go to university and all of those things. But when it came down to, when you look at the core issues of the fundamentals of the South Asian, community, it's very much based on how you look, your education, what kind of person you're going to get married to, their status, what kind of background they're from, if they're from the same caste, if their family are wealthy. I mean, all these things, yes, they do come into play. As much as we want to downplay it and say that, I think my family was a bit different, because they still accepted, my husband, and he's not the same religion as me, which is true. He's still Indian. There were still a lot of things that were expectations, a career, all of these kinds of things. So initially, when I got married, I was, I had beautiful lenga. It was all red, I had a wonderful makeup artist. She covered my vitiligo. I didn't want anyone to see it because I thought if someone sees my vitiligo, they're going to just start talking, they're going to spread gossip. And because I hadn't digested that this is what was happening to me and it was staying with me forever, I thought I could hide it and maybe one day it would just go away.
Right, okay.
So I didn't want to tell people. I didn't want that judgment. I didn't want people to talk about my parents, they're really respectable in the community. I didn't want people to say bad things about them. I wanted to protect them. I wanted to protect my family. I wanted to protect my husband. I didn't want his family then saying, oh my God, who's he married to? Oh gosh, what's that? Like, I didn't want any of that, any of it. So I covered it up, got married, and that was it.
I know, and it's just, this is one of the things, like, bringing culture into it. I mean, I'm from a South Asian background as well, so I completely, resonate and understand everything you just said. And I think that's it, really. It's like, just this kind of thing of being very quick to judge and with a very kind of little response of, taking the approach of understanding, if someone is different, or maybe let's say someone has gained a load of weight, or they have lost a lot of weight, or they look, very stressed. It's like, rather than kind of taking the approach of like empathy, of an empathetic approach of, wait, is this person okay? Like, they look very stressed, they look very overwhelmed, they're not looking their usual self. Let's see what's going on for them. Like, are they okay? Or if they have noticed something, how are they feeling about this? Like you said, if they have noticed someone with a condition, let's take that approach of how what are they going through right now? Are they okay? But instead, it's very much a judgment, isn't it? Just quick to judge because this person isn't meeting the kind of, like you said, tick box kind of approach of like, they should look like this, they should be like this, they should, tick, 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 tick. Yeah. And as a result of that, it's such a shame that, you felt that you had to sort of hide this and keep this within yourself for so long. What you mentioned that, the confidence within yourself started to grow over time. So you started to, as like you said, circumstances have changed, you have experienced more in life, you start to get to know yourself more. And I think, with certain circumstances, we gain more acceptance, obviously, if we choose to look inwards. And, so obviously you're out here now and you are telling people, hey, I'm living with vitiligo. How did your family then respond, once you did come out and share?
So I think mixed emotions, again, when I've done previous podcasts, I've always just kind of assumed what they thought, but I do know now actually what they were thinking. I think there were very much mixed emotions. I think by highlighting the topic of vitiligo, several other members of my family have now come out and started to talk about things that are affecting them. And these are like deep-rooted issues as well, and also health issues that people need to know about. And I think because I've done it, people are now talking about themselves and their families. And I find that even though they haven't sort of said it to me, I know that had I not taken that lead, they wouldn't be in that situation, because everyone was quite fearful of what society and what family and community were going to say. And I think because they've seen me step out of this comfort zone, start talking about it, it's given them that sense of like, oh God, we can raise issues too. We can talk about things that perhaps are frowned upon, or, you know, the community don't know much about. We can educate them more about. So I think that it's empowered people within my community, but I also think that some of the older generation, I still believe, are kind of like thinking, wow, okay, that's a brave move. And I know that deep down in their heads, they're still thinking, she definitely got vitiligo from eating fish or cheese, or maybe her parents weren't around much and that's why she was like, you know, on her own. Like, they're making their own assumptions up, because I'm still convinced that the older generation, it's very hard to change their views. It's the way they think. It's the way that they have grown up. You can't hold that against them. It's just their beliefs and how they are. We're never going to change people's views. And I do think that there is a small percentage of perhaps the older generation that still will have these like older views, like, you know, wow, who does she think she is? She actually must have vitiligo from mixing her fish and milk or something she's done, you know, these myths or something that they believe in. But I would say it's a very small percentage. In fact, a lot of my aunts and uncles and family members have been really like supportive about my book. They've said some really positive things, and I think it's just really endearing. It's just really humbling to know that they can now understand what I went through without perhaps judging me. Yeah. Because when I got married, there were some moments during the wedding ceremony. So there were like different events, and there was one event where you put haldi, it's like the yellow paste, and you put that on the body and you cleanse it, and it's a really big part of a Sikh wedding.
That's turmeric. Yeah, turmeric.
Yeah, and you know, you put it on the skin and you rub it, and it's meant to make it really sort of glowy for the next day. I mean, we need to sort of look back at things like that. I didn't have that. I didn't have anyone touch my skin. I wouldn't let anyone touch me. Right. So getting married wasn't just about sitting at, you know, in the temple and, you know, doing the vows and that's it. For me, it was a very personal experience which I couldn't let people be a part of.
Yeah,
it was very, very profound. I've never spoken about this actually, but I talk about it in my book. And you know, that's very difficult when you are then sort of toying with your culture. It wasn't then even about me. This is about my culture. This is about my family heritage. This is about tradition. And I had to put my hand up and say to my parents, no, I'm not doing that. No one's touching me, because I had camouflage makeup all over my body.
Yeah.
So these things are really difficult, I think, for many people to understand. And I think only now is the time, I think, where family members completely understand why I said no to certain things.
How did you feel when, you know, you saw that by you speaking up, it actually empowered other family members to have their voice and start to speak up about, you know, things that they were holding in for so long? You know, you essentially created that safe space for them to be like, wow, well, he's speaking up, I can do it. How did that feel for you?
I mean, I find it really bizarre, if I'm honest with you, because, you know, I'll have like family on my husband's side or on my mum's side or my dad's side, and they'll just message me personally and say, do you know, I've been struggling with this for so many years and I've been really, really finding it difficult. And they've never spoken about it in all the years I've known them. And like, I think it's really wonderful that they can confide in me now. But like, you know, had I have not maybe brought this to the attention of like the world and, you know, just what's going on, like, it would have made people maybe just think, God, we've got to keep hiding things as well, because essentially that's what I was doing. I was hiding my skin, and I didn't want to be that person for my children. I didn't want them growing up thinking, Mummy's ashamed. I don't want my students at school thinking that teacher is ashamed of herself. She's got something on under her skin she's hiding, but she's ashamed and she's hiding it. So because she's ashamed, we've got a spot on our face. We need to cover it because that's disgusting. Because that's ultimately, that's what I'm creating. I'm going to create vulnerable people around me. And I didn't want to do that. And so that's when, you know, things did start changing a lot.
That's incredible. And it really just highlights that, you know, when you start to, I guess, sort of start to have that acceptance within yourself, start to speak up within yourself, you know, people see that it's like a light, you know, and it really, and this is why I really talk about the fact that like self-love isn't selfish, self-care isn't selfish. You know, when you start to say yes to yourself, you start to speak up for yourself, you're actually having such a positive impact in the world as well, because you know, you're a living example of, well, I'm going to be true to myself. Because there are so many people, I think there are so many of us, you know, who are struggling with that, you know. And I kind of want to talk about, you know, the feeling of being different as well. I've often felt in my life, most of the life, I haven't really, it's okay.
Can we pause it?
Yeah, I it.
Can we pause?
So, you know, I've often felt, you know, like I don't really fit into a box. You know, growing up, I've always felt like, you know, really that, not really fitting into a box, always felt a bit different. And it's something that I, you know, struggled with a lot growing up. But over time, you know, really just sort of getting to know myself more and, you know, embrace who I am and love who I am, I've realized that it's actually an advantage. Like me not really feeling like I fit in anywhere particular has actually allowed me to walk on my own path. It's allowed me to, you know, say no to what isn't good for me, say yes to moving along and doing things that I want to do and they're aligned with me. And not only that, it's also really helped me to give space to all the women that I work with as well. And all the women who, you know, so many messages that I also get, you know, on social media and saying, you know, this has really helped me to start speaking up for myself, to accept who I am, etc. And so that is really the beauty of it, you know. And I wanted to really touch on this today in the podcast because I know there'll be, you know, others of you who are listening to this as well and feeling like I'm different, or I don't necessarily fit in anywhere, or, you know, I wish I was like everyone else. But, you know, there's so much beauty in being different if you can learn to, because that's you at the end of the day, right? So you can change who you are but feel unhappy and feel constantly like you're having to mold yourself into something you're not, and you'll never be happy that way, you know. Or you can also take the other path, which is also difficult, but it means that you are living your true authentic self and you're, you know, encouraging others to do so. And I feel like, Joti, you're, you know, a living example of that.
Thanks, Aliyah. No, you're right. I think you're right. It's living your true authentic self. And had I have continued to cover up and hide myself, I'd be hiding behind a canvas, hiding behind a shield. And it's really funny though. I'm going to share this with you.
Yeah.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I had an event. It was actually London Fashion Week. And the night before that event, I was trying some makeup on, and I put a face of makeup. I did the school run and I put some makeup on, and I turned up at the school gate, and my daughter just looked at me and she was horrified. And she said, the first thing, it wasn't even, hi mum, how was your day, or a cuddle. She looked at me and she said, mum, why have you put so much makeup on? Because she's so used to me seeing me in my natural self. She said, it doesn't suit you, mum. And, you know, she's an 11-year-old girl, and that's how I used to dress up every day for the school run, or even going outside or to the shops. I would wear a full face of makeup because that made me feel really confident. And, you know, there might be some listeners listening to this thinking, but I still wear a full face of makeup. That's absolutely fine if that makes you feel confident. I did it for many years, but sometimes I tell you something, the less makeup you start wearing and the more confident you start seeing yourself in your own skin, the more empowered that you start feeling about yourself, the more confident you see yourself in a different light. I don't need to rely on this makeup brand to make me feel beautiful. I mean, today I have a very light Bobbi brown. You can still see my vitiligo through it. I go out like this. I don't fully, I mean, I put this on for the podcast today, and I just want to show you that actually sometimes I do wear makeup, but generally I am, out with sleeveless clothing. You can see my vitiligo, you can see my patches. This is me. I can't change it.
Yeah.
And, if we start showing society like, this is who I am, I'm not going to cover up for you, then people will start understanding, oh gosh, they're different. Children will start seeing people, oh look, they look different, and it's okay to look like that.
Yeah. So there was a time, as you said, where you were constantly sort of covering it up, right, hiding it, and I saw that you were trying lots of different makeup on, and you had different makeup artists trying to help you cover it up. What would you say to that younger version of yourself if you could sit with her now and have a coffee with her and just talk to her? What would you say?
Well, I quite often do that with my daughter. I look at her and I say that to her, and I always say to her, I say, Ria, I want you to feel confident in who you are. She's extremely tall for her age, and in her year group, she does tower above everyone else. And I say to her, love yourself for who you are. If anyone ever makes a comment about you, your skin, your face, your anything to do with your body, well, you need to politely turn around and say, well, I love my body the way it is, and luckily it's my body and not yours, to be making comments like that. I always tell her to believe in herself, like she's got some well-being books. I give her, I tell her to use positive affirmations. So when she's feeling nervous, like she's got exams and things like that, I always tell her, you can do it. Keep telling yourself you can do it. Keep telling yourself you're great. Keep telling yourself you're going to try your best. I think positive affirmations can give you that mental, like allow you to mentally bypass all of those obstacles in your head. And I have that. I mean, I'm transitioning career, and I'll sometimes think, am I on the right path? And I'll like, no, keep going, keep going, keep going. You can do it. I always tell her about confidence, tell her about loving herself. I also tell her how to stand up to bullies. Because some way along your line in your life, you're going to come across a bully in your school. You're going to come across a bully at university. You're going to come across a bully maybe in your workplace. I have a really close friend of mine who's experiencing bullying in the workplace right now. You're going to have, people that are going to intimidate you, make you feel worthless. And it's like, how do you rise above that? How do you deal with that? How do you start gaining that resilience from a young age? And that's exactly, what I'm trying to do. Give her the tools to deal with that from now.
That's incredible. So you're essentially speaking to your younger self through your daughter, and I guess telling her all the things that you wish you could tell yourself when you were sort of pretending and hiding. You also touched on the fact that we spoke about positive affirmations and how they really help you, and that sometimes you do find that kind of self-talk creeping up, but that's completely normal, and I just want to also kind of touch on that and highlight that now, and speak about the fact that it's completely normal. If we're in a transition, or we've got something we're a bit scared of, or we're out of our comfort zones, or we're a bit upset about something, it's completely normal for that self-talk to kind of creep in. Maybe we have a few doubts. We're like, should I have done that? Am I good enough? But it's really a choice. It's a choice, and there's a difference between being aware of the self-talk and being unaware. When we're unaware of what's going on in our minds, then that can end up just consuming us, and then it ends up causing us for our behavior to follow on from that, and then we start holding ourselves back, or running away from situations, not speaking up, or we start to tap into that, hey, okay, I see you there, I see you in my head, I see what's going on, and embracing that, like embracing the self-talk, and say, okay, that's fine, I hear what you're saying, I understand that you're trying to keep me safe, but I'm okay. And it's almost like kind of embracing it and bringing yourself to a more sort of empowering way of moving the conversation, the inner dialogue that we have. So I think it's a continuous journey, right? I think there's no real time in our life where we'll just always be so positive and empowering and supportive all the time, and that's not really the goal either. It's, as humans, we have to be compassionate towards ourselves. So that's through the positive and also through the difficult times as well.
Yeah, and I think what you've said is really important. So a few weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, I put a post on my Instagram which did actually reflect not such a great day I was having, because it just when I just have this reminder about, and I must have looked at a photograph of myself 10 years ago, and I look completely different. We all do. I mean, I guess we all change, but my skin, I was all brown, and I look at myself and I remember doing a post talking about, the vitiligo's taken away my cultural identity. Because I'm really proud of my heritage and I'm proud of who I am. And I think that whilst, I am positively diverse and I do meet with people and I am a very positive person, there are days that I do feel like vulnerable and I do feel sad about it. And I think what made me post that, and I did talk about it, is that this skin condition, although I've learned to embrace it, it's taken away who I am, what I look like. And that's part of my culture. That's part of like who I am. And that really hurts me. That makes me feel sad. So, it's almost like a process of grieving. I'm going into a new body. I'm going into a new person. And I do miss the old person that I was, because I'll sometimes, just sit side by side next to my children and I'll look at myself thinking like I look so different to them. Like they have got their dad's features, but I mean, like even the skin thing just adds to that. And I think to myself, they look nothing like me. Like my skin just, adds to that. And it does really upset me. But you know what, Aliyah, it's so important. I think the most important thing is that I am now 70% positive, or I would say 80%, that positivity is always there. So even if I'm feeling that little bit negative, it doesn't quite overtake, because my positivity is still like empowered. I'm still stronger. Yeah. So any ounce of negativity is just there, and then it kind of goes. It kind of dips in and out like a wave. But I've overcome it, I suppose. I don't end up falling into that negativity or that depression because, I'm in a different place right now. But for anyone that is struggling with their body or their issues and they are having this kind of up and down wave, it's so important to find those aspects of what keeps them positive, what keeps them happy, which people around them make them happy, which people support them, and who do they have to turn to that can empower them and make them feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you described it like a wave. It kind of comes in and then comes out, so you notice it and then it just kind of leaves as well. So what would you say to someone who is, who right now kind of looks in the mirror and whenever they look in the mirror, they just don't like what they see? What would you say to someone who's going through that?
When you are struggling with something you don't like in the mirror, and it's perfectly normal, we all have those insecurities, to look in the mirror and think, oh my God, I really don't like what I see today. I think there's 3 aspects here. I think the most important thing is to actually identify what it is exactly that you are struggling with. What is it? Sometimes our body confidence issues can be stemmed from things that are happening outside of us. They can be stemmed from things that are happening in our work environment, our friendship circle, our family environments and pressures that we're receiving there. So we really need to identify what that actual issue is. And I think once we've identified, is it actually fundamentally to do with our body, it's then important to actually reach out and look for support groups that can actually offer you guidance and actually very specific and professional advice that you may need. And there is no harm with reaching out for professional support. In my case, I went straight to the Vitiligo Society and the British Skin Foundation. If you are struggling with, weight issues, or you're struggling with just general confidence, there are so many platforms that will offer you guidance and support. And just reach out, tap into them, speak to friends, speak to family. You don't always have to be this strong woman that you think you are. We've all got that soft side to us. We need to be nurtured. Most of the time we're the ones that are, looking after our husbands, we're looking after our family, we're running our house, we're working, we're looking after our children's needs, and our needs come last. And sometimes we just need to prioritize, what is it that we need? What is it that I need right now? Yeah. And Aliyah, I can honestly speak from my heart here, because that's where I am now. I'm now prioritizing me. I've taken a career break, and I'm actually out of that wheel, that rat race. And I'm actually taking a breather and thinking, I want to be present for my children. I want to not be in this rush all the time of checking the time and rush. I want to be present in the moment and be there for them and work on my needs. And my needs is having a little bit of a mental break, having a bit, of time for my own wellness, and making sure, because if I don't have that in place, I'm not going to be a great person to be around either. So I think people need to remember there are support groups, taking some time out for yourself and block booking that if that's difficult to do. I know it's hard for me, blocking that time out. I'm unavailable on Friday from 9 until 3 when that's your time. And I think as well, really sort of blocking out everything else that's going on, whether it's social media or work or family commitments and dinners, because all of those things are expectations. Family dinners and family priorities, that's expectations, things we're expected to kind of do. And sometimes we just actually need to say, well, actually, maybe not this week, maybe in 2 weeks' time, and just focus a little bit on ourselves. Equally, I do think that for some people, it's very hard to reach out for support. It's very hard to talk to someone. And I think that's sometimes where the danger can lie when you're dealing with this alone. I know when I was dealing with this alone, it made me very, very scared, very worried. I went into depression in my early 20s that we haven't discussed much about. I did have some very, very negative thoughts that led me down this very dark hole. And I wouldn't want anyone to ever feel like that. So I must emphasize, reach out to one person you trust. If you're at school, is there a teacher you trust? Is there a safeguarding person that you can turn to in your school environment or university? In your workplace, do you have a helpline? Most workplaces have helplines for their employees. They have unions. You must speak to someone in the first instance and not deal with this alone.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so much support out there. So much support. And, we really don't need to go through anything alone. And yeah, I think when we were so sort of used to being like the strong person and the one that's there for everyone else, we just so kind of easily just get souped up into that role, right? And we forget that actually, no, we need to take care of ourselves as well. I love the point that you made about blocking time for yourselves. Blocking in, you have to schedule in that time. It's actually something I get my clients to do, is actually scheduling in the time for themselves, like me time. Because what can end up happening is, life just takes over and then you just fall right at the bottom of the pile. So you recently, you recently published a book, Strong in the Skin I'm In. Congratulations on that. That's so exciting. Can you tell us more about it?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm so proud of my achievement, because I've been wanting to, I've been journaling for a while now, writing down my thoughts, and many people offered support and advice over lockdown, saying journal your thoughts, talk about how you're feeling, write down what's going through your mind. And I started doing that. And as I was doing that, I realized that I was actually writing a lot about how I felt in the previous, in previous years and before I had kids, and all of these thoughts just started coming out. Bearing in mind that I was working as a teacher, homeschooling my own children, and then I was kind of like trying to just fit in a little bit of time to write down my thoughts, because people were saying just, when you journal, you can actually get so much out of it. I thought, let me give it a try. And then after a while, I just got put two and two together, and I'm like, I've done so much work in the media, writing for different magazines, and I've got part of my story here, part of my story there, I've got something on the radio over there. I want to have my story in one place so people can actually read it. So funnily enough, a lady who I met at a networking event a couple of years ago with the Asian Women Festival platform on Instagram, she reached out to me and said, I'm running a book writing course. Would you like to do that? Would you like to hop on? Because I know you talked about it a couple of years ago. And I said, yes, I would love to. And I started it in lockdown. So at the end of a day, teaching my students, supporting my children, I'd lock myself on a Thursday night and I'd join in on the course, and I started writing for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, I produced a book.
That's incredible. In 6 months. Wow, that is awesome. And so, what, who is the book for? And yeah, tell us a bit about who is the book for?
So, as I mentioned, the whole concept of positively diverse is, really supporting and helping people with visible skin conditions and disabilities, and allowing them to feel part of society and feel empowered, and learning the tips and techniques of how to overcome this. My book, my memoir, is fundamentally a journey about myself, of living with vitiligo, and how I hid my skin and shielded it from the world at the age of 21, when I was in the prime time of my life. I talk about how I successfully managed to do this, where no one knew I had vitiligo, to actually living through this on a day-to-day basis. So how I dealt with a variety of different treatments. I talk about the South Asian culture. I talk about my experience of living in Spain as well, and how the Spanish culture and the Indian culture are quite similar as well, because it actually started when I was living in Spain. So there is a bit about travel, a bit of tourism in there as well, which is lovely. I talk a lot about places I visited in Spain, because I travelled extensively. But then also it's got the darker side to things of, when vitiligo entered my life and what it did to me, and how it eradicated my happiness, how it took away the shine from my life, it took away my aspirations, it stole my freedom. And I share all of this in the book, and then I obviously go on to, from the dark side, the depressing side, and those really sort of sad thoughts, I then talk about how I've turned this into a positive. So the book is a fantastic resource. It can be used within schools, it can be used to support teenagers, adolescents, young people, going through life-changing circumstances and situations. It can support adults. It really does support a wide age range, which is because I started vitiligo entered my life at 21. I'm now 43 and I'm still living with it, so it does sort of support that age range. Funnily enough, my daughter is 11 and she's read my book, and it's a very easy read. There aren't any complicated words in it as such, and it's a book you can read within 2 hours, and it's just one of these really kind of empowering, motivating books that many people have said on Amazon for feedback, which is really lovely. Once you get hooked, you'll just want to continue. So I just hope it supports people. I hope it gives people the ability and the confidence to think, you know what, I've got a mole here, how do I live with this? Do I need to carry on hiding it? How can I achieve everything I want to without this disrupting my life? Any visible difference? And this is even eczema, psoriasis, acne, all of these tiny little things, skin conditions. And I'm not saying, I don't want to sort of say vitiligo is bigger. When I say tiny, I mean like acne. We don't necessarily, many people might not consider it a skin condition, but it can severely impact the life of a person. So it's really important to sort of highlight that the book will give a positive spin on living with a difference, and what it is actually like to live with a visible difference, but be really happy and confident in the skin you're in.
It sounds so empowering. I cannot wait to order my copy. I'll be doing it now, actually. I'm so excited to read it, and and just to hear your journey. And of course, I'm sure there'll be another book in future, because there's so much now that you're doing following on from this, and you started a new chapter. So I can imagine there'll be lots more to write about in the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder, 40 plus in vitiligo, that's something that really does, make me reflect on how different I am dealing with it now than how I dealt with it when I was age 20. And I think age does play a big part in how you deal with things, your level of maturity, life circumstances. And also they say that when you're 40, I was reading in a magazine, in the Psychologies magazine actually this month, that it says that in different ages you respond to things differently, and in your 40s you're more empathetic and you have a better understanding of people's differences around you, which I thought was really interesting, because you know, obviously when I was 21, I didn't have a clue, you know, I didn't even know what vitiligo was. So I didn't know, I didn't have a clue about eczema. I didn't even know what eczema was, psoriasis, didn't have a clue. And now I have a you know, a breadth, I have a wide range of understanding all these conditions and disabilities. And it's only just made me a more understanding person. And I love that I can share that with my children.
It sounds like, you know, although it's been so challenging, challenging along the way, you've actually gained so much as well.
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
you mentioned something about, you know, it kind of took away your identity, especially like your South Asian identity, but it sounds like it's brought a whole new identity and, you know, a whole different way of living and seeing yourself, and, you know, just a new perspective and a new sense of confidence. Maybe if it wasn't for this, you wouldn't have had to sort of really go inwards as much, and really, you know, maybe you wouldn't be sort of you know, really instilling this much confidence in your kids either, and with other children around you, and not just children but women, men around the world. So it sounds like, yeah, it's also brought so much to you in a positive way from what you're saying.
100%. Actually, you know, the way that you just said it now, if this didn't happen to you, you wouldn't be, you know, you probably wouldn't do as much work or have an understanding about this topic. I wouldn't have a platform like this. I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't be involved. I wouldn't. And it's just the way life is, isn't it? If I didn't experience this, I wouldn't have gone through it, and I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing. So absolutely, you know, it's changed my whole view on beauty. I look at people very differently as well. I always see someone for who they are, essentially behind the makeup. And, you know, that really does make me feel like, you know, I have like, I love being able to sort of see the real people behind who they are, because of, you know, what I've gone through, and I'm really getting to know them, understanding them, and sort of seeing their true authentic self as well. It's really important to me. And, you know, in the work that I'm doing now, it's just amazing to meet so many people from different walks of life who are sharing their stories with me about what they've gone through. Because, like I said, vitiligo is visual, but sometimes you've got disabilities that, you know, hidden disabilities as well, that aren't so visible, like speech and language and things like that. And I think it's just about creating an awareness, and I love creating an awareness and a buzz, and getting people to understand different conditions. I think it really helps create a better environment for all.
Absolutely. Well, talking about the last thing I wanted to ask you about is the catwalk that you recently did. Oh my gosh, it looked epic. Tell us about this catwalk.
So Aliyah, you know what? Let's put cards down on the table, right? I am not 6 foot. I'm not skinny. I don't have blonde hair. I'm not a size 8, but I did London Fashion Week, okay? And I think anyone that's listening to this. Okay, and I've never really said this on a podcast, you know, like I am a little bit top heavy as well. And, you know, I sometimes kind of think to myself, I don't fit this whole, you know, catwalk image look at all, which is why I absolutely loved London Fashion Week, because there was a whole, you know, focus on diversity and representation. So I was working with London Organic, who've organised events like this over the last few years, and they really do emphasise the importance of sustainable clothing and diverse clothing versus diverse modelling. And they want models to model that range of clothing that fits, that goes hand in hand. So when I was invited on to model some clothing, I was really nervous, but I just thought to myself, this just fits with the person that I am now. I'm diverse, I'm unique, you know, I don't fit that typical catwalk model look. And I was doing it alongside many other models who were sort of sharing their, you know, their authentic selves, so be it. And yeah, it was an incredible feeling. Like I look back and think, oh my God, like I've done this twice now. Such a lovely feeling. Very, very inspiring, very like almost like I can't believe that this actually happened to me. Like I've done it. I've been, you know, I remember looking in magazines thinking, God, they're beautiful, you need to look a certain way to be able to do this. But it's about breaking that mold. Anyone can do anything. Anyone can do anything regardless of what they look like, where they are in their life, whether they're married or not, whether they've got a skin condition or not, whether they have a disability or not, they can do anything they want, provided that they have the right mindset and the right support of people around them. And yeah, for me, I look back and just think, wow, like I'm still in shock, because only just 5 years ago, like I said, I would never, ever wear anything that showed my arms, my face, my ankles, the lower part of my leg. I would never, ever wear anything like this. Yeah. That was revealing a lot, for my arms to be on show was like, yeah, a big thing.
Well, and it's just beautiful to see how much more comfortable you've become in your own skin, how much more confident you are, how much just you're embracing this part of you. And now, because of that, like because of how much you've evolved on your journey, now essentially what you're doing is just spreading that, like you're using that to empower, the next generation, empower women, girls, men, or boys around the world to say, like, whatever it is, whoever you are, own it. Yes, it doesn't mean it's easy, for sure, definitely not. You'll definitely, it's likely that you'll face challenges and stumbling blocks along the way, but own it. Nothing is, I guess, harder than, living a life that's not you, that's, that's to be someone else, and hiding who you are. That's harder. Like, both are difficult, right? Hiding who you are is hard. Embracing who you are is hard. But the second one is just so much more rewarding. And it gets easier over time, the more, and like you said, having that support system around you, knowing that you don't have to go through all of this alone. There are people around you, and I've definitely found that my own journey, the more I've started to open up and be vulnerable and accept that, hey, I'm not perfect at all, and take that judgment away from myself, I found that it's been so much easier to speak to other people and have more real conversations, and for people to step up and be real as well. So essentially it all comes from within ourselves. We're giving other people that space to do the same as well.
You just hit the nail on the head. Everything you said is just spot on. And I think it's so important that even though we've got to that point, we must not forget our children. I know I keep emphasizing children because they are the new generation. They are the ones that are visualizing and seeing all of this happen. And we've got to make them feel confident. We've got to make them, as parents, as carers, as teachers, as lecturers, whoever we are to a child that we know, we need to make them feel good about themselves, and we shouldn't be comparing them to anyone else. We shouldn't be comparing them to people on social media, because they are beautiful the way they are, and we've got to instill that confidence in them, because if we don't do that, we're only going to create a generation of vulnerable, needy young people who feel worthless. And trust me, I mean, I really am sort of saying that from my heart, because I've seen it. I worked in a girls' school, and I've seen these fears. I've seen girls talk to me openly about how insecure they feel because they haven't got that confidence. They haven't got that self-belief. And so, I've tried so hard to get them to believe in themselves, but it doesn't happen overnight. And these are things that I think parents and carers and loved ones can do, grandparents can do to help, really bring that core belief to their children, and allow them to feel, because it isn't just about being loved, it's about them feeling, that they love themselves, and how they love themselves, and feeling good about themselves. And I think that is so, so important to the new generation of children that are growing up in a world that is forever evolving, but presenting itself with many challenges when it comes to body positivity.
Yeah, in a world that's telling you that you're not good enough, you don't look good enough. It's definitely a battle. But it's amazing. I think those are strong, powerful words to end on, really. I think it's just been so incredible having you join us today and just share so much of your journey. And thank you for being open and honest with us, and just sharing so much. And are there any sort of last, final bits that you want to say, anything you want to share for our listeners today who were with us?
Well, if anybody's listening to this and they would love to talk about an issue that's affecting them, or they want to reach out, or they know someone with vitiligo or a skin condition, please do reach out to me on my platform. I'm on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube as well, and it's all under Positively Diverse. And I am under Facebook, all under Positively Diverse. And you can always send me a message, and I'm here to listen. I'm here to support, maybe guide you the right way, or just give you some direction of who you can turn to. If anyone's tuning in and they think that they could be doing, they could do with just having like a voice, an empowering voice in a workplace, or you just need the support and you want to reach out, just have a chat with me. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you as well. And like I said, you're never alone. There's always someone out there for you, and just remember, whether it's me or someone else, you must reach out for that support.
That's so lovely. Thank you. And where can we get a copy of your book, Strong in the Skin I'm In?
So it's available on Amazon, and it is available on Amazon, www.amazon.co.uk and amazon.com. And there is a Kindle version that's now available, which is really exciting. And the Kindle version is also there for you, so feel free to have a browse on Amazon, and I would love your feedback, what you thought of it. It's a very quick read, guys, so honestly, it's not one you'll be spending weeks over. You will literally start and it'll be like, yeah, we'll get through it.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Joti. And thank you all to all of you who are listening as well. As you said, if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch, drop us a message. So thank you, everyone, and take care. Have a lovely day.
If you have any questions about this interview, please do pop them into the comments below. And don't forget, if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button below. It would be amazing if you guys can share things that you would like to see in the future. And if you've been inspired by this interview, or you would like to find out more information, don't forget to put something in the comments below. Thanks guys for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next week.